Hello, everyone. Welcome to our halftime interview series. I am your host, Sammy Pavlov, recent graduate and Smith athlete. I am here today, and I'm very excited to have with us someone who I've seen around Ainsworth Gymnasium, many photos as an NCAA Woman of the Year finalist, and just a popular name around Ainsworth Gymnasium. Three-time All-American diver and 2008 Smith graduate, Shanti Freitas.
Hi, it's so nice to be
with
here.
us.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really have seen you around Ainsworth Gymnasium, but I'm so glad we get the chance to, virtually meet. And you are so decorated, such an incredible diver and such an incredible student at Smith. I wondered, what was your experience like being a sociology major and a diver?
Yeah, it was, I personally love the student athlete experience. I definitely chose Smith and I was looking for a D3 school because I wanted a place where I could balance the athletics and the academics. I didn't want something where the athletics would take up all of my time and be my number one priority, but I also wanted a strong academic and athletic experience. So it was definitely a balance, as all student, college athletes know, and I'm sure you know that it takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of being able to prioritize kind of, I knew every day that, okay, from about 4:30 to almost, 8 o'clock, I would be in practice and in the pool and whether it was dry land or stretching afterwards. And so I knew that wasn't time I would have for homework and papers and stuff like that. So it was just a question of trying to make sure I got things done. Obviously, all Saturdays were at meets for most of the academic year. So again, knowing that I didn't have that time academically, but I personally loved being able to have really strong academics. I love the sociology major. I even, now with current events and all these things, I use it really often. And so that was definitely an important piece to me. And then the athletics, again, it was great. I love being part of the athletic community at Smith. So certainly a balance, but definitely worth having strong both athletic and academics.
Yeah, it is a balance. And how did you get into diving? And did you ever think, have you been diving your whole life, or is it something you picked up later on?
Yeah, I guess later, it depends on how you would, I know a lot of times now, like college athletes start their sports really, really early. Diving is kind of an obscure one. It's not one that most kids do, but my dad actually was a diver and a swimmer back when you could kind of do both. You don't see that quite as much because there's such different sports now, but he was a swimmer and diver in high school and college. And so when I was in middle school, I was doing a little bit of gymnastics and I really liked kind of that physical flexibility piece of it. And so he asked if I wanted to try diving and I was like, oh, sure. So he signed me up for classes the summer before 8th grade. And that was kind of the first summer I started diving. And then I loved it. And I dove in high school and that was great. And I loved it. I was captain my senior year in high school and I knew I wanted to do something like that in college. But again, not a D3 place where it was really the only reason I was going to college. So I wanted to continue, in D3, and Smith definitely was a place to do that. So it kind of became, I played a lot of other sports like soccer and a little bit of volleyball as a kid, but I think it certainly became my primary sport once I realized how much I loved it. And I felt like I was, did well at it too. So that was good.
And looking back on your time diving at Smith, do you have a favorite memory? I'm sure there are a lot. You have so many accolades. Is there any competition memory or any moment that really sticks out?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's actually funny. I definitely have a lot of different memories from that. I think that each of the 3 years I went to nationals was I have different memories from each of those. So my first year that I went, I really had nothing, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how it was going to go, how I would do. I was just kind of there. And it was nice because there wasn't as much pressure, I suppose. I was just kind of there to compete and see what happened. But I ended up doing really well. And I remember because nationals that year was pretty close to Chicago, my high school coach came to nationals to watch me dive and he was just so impressed by how much I'd gone, how much better I was after a year. So that was kind of a special moment. And then my sophomore year at nationals, I remember that on my first year, the first 1 meter board, I slipped and fell during my dive, I think out of nerves and stuff. And so I failed the dive. I got a 0 and I wasn't able to get into the finals. But that was something. And then for the 3 meter that year, I actually did okay. So it was kind of no pun intended, like I bounced back from something that was really kind of, it was really hard because I failed the dive and I was really, really upset about it. And then my junior year, I was studying abroad, so I didn't go to nationals that year. And then my senior year was a really, really memorable nationals. I came within a point of getting first place, which was upsetting, but also I think that was the competition. I literally dove the best I had ever dove in my life. So that just felt good to end on like a really high note.
Yeah, that's a great way to end. And you mentioned that you studied abroad, and I really wanted to ask you about this because you are a winter sport where the season, it's not as cut and dry. The season is long. My sister's a swimmer in college, and it is a long season. Can you talk about, some advice for winter athletes or student athletes in general that are thinking about studying abroad, and maybe talk a bit on your experience studying abroad in Ecuador?
Yeah, definitely. I am a huge proponent of study abroad. I really encourage all students and student athletes and everyone to do it. I actually, right now, I work in study abroad. That has been my field in my career. So I obviously really, really believe in it. And the reason I'm doing it now is because I want to get more students to be able to have that experience. So again, that was the beauty of Smith, is that like you're not just one thing, right? So you can be a student, you can be an athlete. And for me, studying abroad, I knew that going into it was a really important experience for me. And so, yeah, as you said, like the season really starts, you start pre-season in September and you go through March if you go to nationals. So there wasn't really a great you had to miss some of your season no matter what if you study away for a whole semester. I personally chose the spring because I felt like if I had studied abroad in the fall and then come back like in January, I probably wouldn't have made it to nationals. Like I wouldn't have enough time to kind of train and get up to the place that I wanted to be by the time that year came around. So I thought it'd be better to compete in the fall, do well, and at the end of December, whenever it was, and then go abroad in the spring. I certainly, gave up competing at nationals and NEWMACs and the other parts of that spring semester, but I personally felt like, the studying abroad was an important part of it, and I would have other years to compete. My coach, Kim Beerwart, was really, really supportive through all of it, and he's an amazing, amazing coach. And so I don't regret that at all. And I would definitely encourage all athletes and student athletes to really think about studying abroad, because it's classic to say, but like it has changed my life in a lot of ways. And after I graduated from Smith, I ended up moving back to Ecuador for 3 years. So I lived there. And that was really because I knew people and I had a study abroad experience. I speak Spanish fluently. Like there's just so many things, and then career-wise, that it has impacted. So I think everyone should do it.
Yeah, we need encouragement, especially I think athletes think they miss their off season or just debate. But I think, as you said, Kim was very supportive, and definitely, do you recommend having that conversation with your coach early on?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I think it's just a question of what you want, but I do think that the study abroad experience is a really, really unique one, and it's one that in the way that you do in college, there's not a chance to do something like that in another part of your life, right? Like you can always travel later and you can vacation and stuff, but being able to study and live in another country isn't, the structure really isn't there outside college. I remember talking to Kim and trying to figure out which semester and stuff like that. So I would say, talk to coaches. I hope that they're all supportive. It is a hard decision, but again, I feel like it really rounded out my experience overall.
And talking about after you studied abroad and then you lived abroad for 3 years, can you talk about going to graduate school? What made you, want to attend Harvard for a graduate school, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, that was, it was a really, really great experience. It's a master's in international education policy, and it's a 1-year master's. I was looking at a bunch of different grad schools that were 1 or 2 years. And it really came out of the fact that I had lived, I studied abroad and then I lived abroad, and I was working with a lot of students internationally. And I felt like that global education, global awareness, intercultural competence piece was really, really important. And I wanted to eventually work, do my career in that. So I thought, okay, I want to move back to the US and go to grad school. Again, applied to a bunch of different places. It was nice to be back in Massachusetts and close enough to Smith, and I like Boston a lot. I lived in Somerville. Because it was such a short master's, it was an intense one, really 2 semesters, 8 classes, not a lot of breaks, kind of get it done quickly. But I met the most amazing people at Harvard, really, really talented, smart people who are now doing, great things. So I think that network was definitely a big part of it. And I again, continue like in my career right now to really use a lot of the things that I learned in grad school.
And can you talk a little bit more about what you're doing now?
Yeah, so right now I work at Macalester College in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I am the assistant director of their Center for Study Away. So at Macalester, we have both international and domestic programs. We call it, instead of study abroad, we call it study away because it's not just abroad outside of the US. And so I'm, working with students. I mean, Macalester is very similar to Smith. Obviously it's co-ed, but it is a small liberal arts school, and a lot of students do study away. It's D3. And so I, help students with advising, trying to help them choose like the right program for them, the right country, the right type structure, language, stuff like that. And then we run a couple faculty-led programs. So I work with the faculty on those. So just kind of it's nice to be back on a college campus, and it's kind of fun to be able to, attend some sports too, and be part of like that higher education environment. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so we are going for it. Study away. You definitely recommend that. It's a great experience.
Definitely. Yes.
And my next question is about your graduation year. I know you graduated in 2008, which was, during the recession, a rough time. And a lot of times with this 2020 graduates, we've been encouraged or been speaking with 2008 grads, during not the exact same, not a global pandemic, obviously, that you graduated in, but times were tough for the both of us. Do you have any recommendations for, young graduates? Did you know exactly what you wanted to do? How did you stay hopeful and driven when graduating during such turmoil?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel I can imagine that it's extremely hard to graduate at this time, not only because of the recession and jobs, but and the pandemic and not being able to, have those celebrations in the same way. I did see, I think online, that some of the Smith grads did their own little celebration before leaving campus and stuff, which was awesome. In terms of, I guess, recommendations, I did not know what I wanted to do when I graduated. That's why I thought, I'll move to Ecuador and kind of see how it works out. And, I think that, and it did help because moving to Ecuador kind of got me out of the recession, the US economic recession, and lack of jobs here. I would say, just some of the important things, obviously, I'm sure you've heard this, but networking is huge, right? And really focus on the Smith network because it's amazing. Having alums all over the country, all over the world, trying to connect with whatever city it is in, like the Minnesota or Twin Cities has a chapter of Smith alums. So whatever city you're in, get involved with the alum network in that city. You're going to meet amazing people, and they will have connections. They'll have, to try and network with them, get coffee or maybe a Zoom call or whatever it might be right now, but leverage that networking, but specifically the Smith network is amazing. And then I would also just say try and cast a wide net, because again, you might think you know what you want to do, or you might not know what you want to do, but either way, especially in this time where you might not be able to have the exact specific thing you're looking for, cast a wide net, apply to a lot of jobs, again, talk to people as much as you can. And then try things that maybe it's not exactly what you think you want to be doing, but again, you're going to be learning from those, whatever job or internship or whatever you end up doing, and you decide, and then you can learn what you want to do and what you maybe don't want to do. That's an important thing to learn too, is what you don't want to do.
Important.
Yeah, exactly. And so, cast a wide net and just leverage that network, because I think Smithies are always around to help another Smithy out.
And talking about networks, and this will be my last question for you, did you have any mentors at Smith, and do you still stay in contact with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to athletics, my biggest mentor or support system was Kim. I remember actually when I was looking at a bunch of D3 schools in high school, and I knew I wanted to dive wherever I was. And I met a lot of coaches, and Kim was one of the main reasons I came to Smith. He just felt like he had a philosophy of coaching that I could get behind him. And he was truly supportive throughout. So, and as you know, as an athlete, like you spend a ton of time with your coach, right? Your teammates. And so it was just, nice to have a person that I felt like knew me really well, because he knew how to motivate me in practice, and he knew how to get kind of, me to dive my best. So I would say Smith. I definitely, and I've kept in touch with him. I was, back on campus for the Hall of Fame stuff, but he's definitely been someone I've kept in contact with. There's some other professors and certainly a lot of friends from Smith, obviously, and teammates that I keep in touch with. But I think, as you know, you spend a lot of time with your coach. So Kim is definitely one of the biggest.
Important to have that connection. And I'm sure Coach Jane, my coach for field hockey, she watches all the interviews. So this is a shout out to her. Hey, Jane. But that is about all the time we have. Thank you so much for making the time to chat with us. You're incredible, a legend, an All-American. I've heard so much about you, and it's really nice for you to give back and chat with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love Smith. I love, I have great memories from there in both diving and academics and friends and all sorts of stuff. So I'm always happy, and thank you for the invite to be able to do this.
Of course, and that is about all the time we have. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the second half of the field hockey game. I'm your host, Sammy Pavlov. Enjoy and come back every Friday night at 7 for another game of the week. Take care.